Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Right, so there's good news and bad news. Okay, so the bad news is the SD card that I've been using in my action camera to film the build of the engine seems to have packed up and isn't working any longer, and I can't seem to find my stash of spare SD cards. So until I get something sorted out with an SD card, either buy a new one or find one or whatever, I'm not going to be able to record the actual build. Excuse me. Okay, so the good news is I've actually started on the bottom end build. Well, of course you knew that already because I started putting the pistons in, but I'm kind of continuing with it. So the bearings came, and the piston circlip came. So the piston's now in. I can't remember whether I put that on a previous video, but I've also started fitting the bearings. So here you can see the new bearings, these crank bearings. So they're all colour coded. So I followed my original notes that I had made when I disassembled the engine. So we've got like a blue bearing there, and we've got a green bearing there, and we've got, I think that's a brown bearing there. So that's the correct bearings in, and then we've got the rest of the bearings to go in the top half of the crankcase. That'll get done when the top half goes on, but I have to put in the crank and the gear and the gear shafts and cogs and what have you before the two halves of the crankcases can go together. Okay, so then you've also got the ends of the con rods. So we've got the end of a con rod there, so that's a yellow. So that one goes on there, and that's also got a yellow bearing in it. And then you've got this one, which is a brown. That's C3. So you've got C1 is yellow, C3 is brown. So you've got the two halves of the brown bearing there. Then you've got these at this end, which are all green. That's a green, and that's a B2, and the B2s are all greens. That's green on there, and you've got green. Don't know if you can see it. Where are we? There's green on that one. Okay, so and you've got the green top halves there. So that's basically the bearings in place. So the next step is really to install the crankshaft. So that's what I'm going to do next. Unfortunately, because of the SD card situation, I'm not going to be able to record this. Having said that, I might just go and have another look for my stash just now and see if I can find it. Right, so managed to find another micro SD card, swapped it out in the camera, but it's still not recording. So I think there's actually a problem with the camera. So I've been trying to figure out how to reset it. I've not had any luck with that so far. So basically I haven't got a working action cam at the moment, which is a bit of a pain because I kind of really wanted to have that. But anyway, so what I've done is I'm just kind of carrying on with the rebuild. As you can see, that's the crank back into the top half of the crankcases, and the con rod's in position. It was quite awkward to get it back in. Basically had to kind of like put the pistons at TDC. Well, they're not all at TDC now, but they were when I was putting it in, to try and get the con rods as far down away from the crank as possible. And then I kind of carefully lowered the crank in, and then I kind of jiggled the sort of top end of the con rods into place while kind of like holding the crank or moving the crank a little bit, and then eventually managed to get it all together. And I don't think I've scratched anything as far as I can tell. I don't think I've scratched any of these kind of like journals or anything, so hopefully that'll be okay. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to get my little tub of oil, which I've got here. This is a tub of clean engine oil. Excuse me. I'm going to put a wee bit of oil on each of these, pour a bit of oil on here, 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 and here, and then I'm going to put these tops on and then bolt them down, and then I'll try turning the whole thing over by hand, and hopefully it should be fine and working. That's the plan anyway. Okay, so that's the top end of the con rods now installed. All of those put on. I've used the code numbers on them, so that's a B2. You can see that's correct because it's 2 halves of the 2. Ditto on the other side, you can't really see that from here, but and the same here, we've got C1 and you've got C3 there. You have to be careful to get them on the right way around as well, because they're not the same shape, they're not symmetrical, they're not the same shape on each side, they're a different shape on each side. So that's them in place. The crank, actually I'm not going to turn the crank just now because they're not bolted on, so they might pull off if I turn the crank. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these nuts on now, and we'll just put them on finger tight initially, and then I'll look up the Haynes manual, see what the torque should be, and torque them correctly. My action camera just picked just the right time to pack up, because I would have really liked to have had this on video, but just my luck, eh? I suppose I should probably have a spare action camera or whatever, but unfortunately I don't, so here we go. Just have to manage with my phone just for now. Right, okay, that'll do for now. Right, so that's kind of like the crank in, and the conrod's kind of attached. So next thing is torque those down, and then I just need to put the gear shafts in, and then the 2 halves can go together. So, making some progress.